Hello everyone. It's James again. And today I want to talk about the comments on my last video. So many good comments that really speak to this problem of narcissistic abuse. And as many of you may know, I mentioned hoarding. And how my mother was a hoarder and used this to isolate my brother and myself. So we would have an even more abnormal life. And less of a chance of seeing what a normal family can be like. And if you haven't had a chance to watch the last few videos I made, go back and do so. And then come back to this one. Now, first off, I want to say thank you for all of your encouraging words. And I want to say all of what you said to me applies to you as well. You survived and you are here. And God is blessing you. God is with you every step of the way. Because there were times I look back on things. And I said, there's no way I could today survive what I survived. If you put me in a time machine to go back and live it all over again. And then I think about how did I get through what I endured. And I realized God was with me. He was with me every single step of the way. And yes, I do want to use this pain for good. Something did come out of such pain. My ability to talk to others about it. So they might catch this problem a lot earlier than I caught it in my life, and they might be able to move forward. And develop all of their talents and skills fully. Because that's the thing. Narcissistic abuse can be very confusing. With all of the gaslighting and flying monkeys lashing out against us. Telling us what a terrible child we were to our narcissistic parent or parents growing up. And with all of that, we doubt ourselves. Did the narcissistic abuse really happen? Heck. We might not have ever heard the term narcissistic abuse before. So we live in a fog. But it's my goal to clear that fog so those of us that were so deeply affected by this horrible abuse can see clearly. It's what I call the Batman effect. Some crazy guy guns down a young child's parents in front of this child. Either this child is going to repress everything that happened and pretend like life is great, when it's really not. And as a result, all of this person's relationships will suffer. Or they will spiral out of control completely with drugs and alcohol. Or they will work hard so another child won't have to go through the pain of watching his or her parents gunned down in the street. Right in front of this child. Well, narcissistic abuse survivors. Many of us have the last trait I just mentioned. The Batman effect. We are out there working hard to educate people with our stories. Hoping it just might save one person some pain and time in their life. This is also why I speak about divorces and the unfair family court system. And I actually have an idea that I think will change things fast if it was implemented. I will mention this in an upcoming video. But no. We aren't running around fighting crime. We are just saying. Wait a minute here. We were just kids. We were just kids. Now, as one of my commenters, Mahajan mentioned. So true. Today I am a mother of and wonder how could a mother do all this to me. This comment is so important. Because no matter if you have kids or not, you may notice when you see a young child with their parents at the store. Or wherever you go. You think. How could these people do what they did to me? I was so small. I mean, when you look at your own kids. Or kids of others. You may think back. And say to yourself. I was that small when all of these things were happening. I not only think about my mother and her flying monkeys. I think about the teachers at school that eventually started to hate my mother and wanted us to just leave. And how they took that out on me and my golden child brother. However, as mentioned, there was one teacher that treated me so good. I felt safe around her and she really seemed to care. But as soon as I was starting to feel safe, she got married and moved out of state. And very quickly I was with another teacher. One that mistreated me really bad. And I think back on it. How can some big adult Treat such a small helpless kid so badly for things that aren't his fault. It's just mind-boggling. But that proves something important to me. This problem of evil and narcissism is bigger than we think. And for those of you that have a belief in God, you will understand what I'm about ready to say. Each time God rained down destruction, no matter it be a twin city in the Bible, or when he flooded the earth, there were only a handful of people God chose to survive. And you have to ask yourself why? Yes, I do believe with the flood there were genetic issues with fallen angels. And you don't have to believe in that if you don't want to. You won't offend me if you don't. But beyond that, people were just evil. Now that's not to say there aren't good people now. Or at least people capable of good. Because there are. But the template for how people are to be on this earth set up by Satan, Lucifer himself, is quite evil and corrupt. And those that push this agenda want others to follow in this corrupt system, so they adopt the mindset and actions in their forehead and their hand with evil of the narcissist. Conscienceless, corrupt, and utter evil. And that's what you are seeing more and more. The bad guy or bad girl is being cheered. And the person that is trying to be good is seen as a sucker that gets what he or she deserves for being decent, just, and kind. It's truly amazing in a bad way. And that's why this information is so important. So one can sidestep this abuse if possible and have a fruitful life. Because the facts are, you might have a handful of decent people around you when it's all said and done. And maybe not even that. That's just the world we live in. Now on to another comment. One by Nady. She writes, I too struggled at school and got zero support at home, and it wasn't for lack of intelligence either. In my case, I think it was connected to CPTSD, virtually impossible to concentrate. Focus when you're just fighting for survival every day, but boy was I made to feel like an idiot for it. They tried to put me in the slow learners class too, but I refused. I was incredibly stubborn back then, and I guess they just gave up in the end. It suits the narc to keep you that way. They get more sympathy from everyone. And what Nady is saying is so spot on. Here's the facts. Either narcissist parents push their children to academic excellence so they can show off how brilliant their child is. Or they screw up their education so their child is stuck at home with no options. And even though a parent might push their child to academic excellence, they will just control their child another way. Usually it's done with money. But if that's not available to them, the easiest way to make it so the child will stay at home and to be dependent on the narcissist parent is if they have a poor education and no way of obtaining a good job for themselves where they can leave once and for all. And I want to mention to Nady, it's your stubbornness that probably helped you see something was wrong. It probably made you a target. But in the end it kept you fighting for the truth. I'm glad you made it out and you are a survivor. But yes, this is what these monsters do to their children. They only care about controlling and wrecking their children's lives so they can gain narcissistic supply. I think I mentioned in some of my older videos how while I was in one of my slow learning classes, I would be taken out of class by another special teacher, so they could take me to a room. To what I now look back on, they were testing me to see if I was retarded. They basically wanted to see if I could walk and chew gum at the same time. It was weird. They had me walk on a low to the ground balance beam. They had me squeeze a ball and throw bean bags into a bucket and skip around in circles. Everything I did super easily. And it was as if they were disappointed. Surely I must be retarded. How is he able to do all of these things and hold super intelligent conversations? This just doesn't add up. Well, it didn't add up, because there was nothing wrong with me. But I'm pretty sure my mother was behind the scenes, telling these special teachers, I don't know what's wrong with him. I'm doing my best to help him. I just don't know what to do. I love my baby. I love him so much. I don't know what to do. Good Lord. My mother just loved this part of things. She would sob and cry and pretend to be in such distress over her children doing poorly in school. And though I'm pretty sure she did this in the background without me knowing it, I did witness her doing this a lot regarding all things that had to do with my brother and myself. And I was sitting there thinking to myself, how in the world are you able to help me? I'm 8 years old. And you are asking me how to spell words for you that you don't know how to spell when you are attempting to write a letter to someone. A letter that looked like scribble. And the words. She didn't know how to spell words as easy as cat, hat, run, and walk, along with other words just as easy. And now I look back and understand her education was more than likely sabotaged by her mother as well. It's just a horrible, horrible cycle. A cycle of abuse that now ends with all of us. We are the ones that are breaking this horrible curse of narcissistic abuse. Now the next comment is from Lori P. And again, thank you Lori for your comment. Lori writes, James, you are without question a survivor. I mean, however could you trust adults when your own mother was sabotaging you all of the time? May I ask a question? You don't have to go into detail, but you did mention your narcissist mother is now ill. What did she do for money once you and your brother left home? How does she manage today? Narcs only get much worse with age, so I am curious. Do you think any of her illness came about due to stress or inner turmoil she feels? Seems like every person I meet who ends up being a narc ends up suffering from cancer, IBS, etc. Dropping hints, smear campaigns are their forte. It's what they do best. Your childhood was so sad and filled with depression and anxiety. I do remember certain family members, that when I was a child and they would come over for a visit, they loved to put me on the spot. Under the guise of having not seen you in a while. They would say, why are you always hiding behind a book? Come here and talk to me. And, then when you did as you were told, I'd hear a string of criticisms. I knew enough to keep to myself when certain family members came over. Never tell narcs about new friends, family, hobbies, the gym you go to or anything like that. They will sure as heck show up there or get their flying monkeys to go there for them to observe you and what you do. The more info they can gather on you, the more they think they can control you. And I responded back to Lori stating, thanks for your encouraging words, Lori. It was amazing I survived all of what happened in my childhood. I believe God was with me every step of the way. Now just to digress for a moment. When I replied with this, I really do mean it. I look back and I completely feel as I mentioned before. Without God there's no way I would have made it. No way. It's just amazing to me. But I continued in my reply by saying, to answer your question, my mother does what I think most narcs do that are old, and have failing health do, and that's get on disability. The fact is my mother was such a narc and was troubled with Munchausen syndrome, she greatly neglected her own health, and actually I think she purposely did things that made her health bad so she could always be running back to the doctor for attention and whatever medicines they would prescribe her. As a result she developed a lot of permanent and serious health problems. My mother spoke about disability way before she got on it. I think she applied before she met my father and was denied because she wasn't in as poor health as she is in now. My mother never worked and never wanted to work, and she always seemed to have a plan to make that happen. My brother and I were just a means for her to get narcissistic supply, to run her scams, and to get free money. You are right. Never ever tell the narc anything about yourself. They will for sure use it against you. The same goes for their flying monkeys. Now regarding my reply, I will tell you. No contact is indeed the best. However, there have been some of you like myself, where your narcissist parent is pretty much at the end. Or what appears to be the end. And still knowing the narcissist is still dangerous. You might have some contact regarding things that are regarding their medical problem and such. And if that is the case, don't let anyone judge you. You are a kind person, doing what you believe is right. But I will give you a word of caution. These beings that are our so-called parent or parents are still dangerous vipers. Don't tell them anything about your life, where you work, what you do for fun, how much money you have or don't have. Don't tell them about your new friends or someone you're dating. Nothing. Keep it to the weather outside and the medical issues at hand. Be polite and short. Keep the interactions as short as possible. And if anything, this might even help you when they are gone. Because we often beat ourselves up over things we shouldn't. And if you are in a situation where they can no longer affect your life, and you speak to the narc mother or father a couple of times in a year regarding their health, and you keep the conversation short, when they are gone, you might have an easier time dealing with things. Now if they are flat out abusive, don't tolerate it. I'm not shy about hanging up on my mother. But my mother's game is more manipulation than anything. So as long as I keep it short and infrequent, and don't tell her anything about myself, I'm okay. Now if it were the me that existed 10 or 15 years ago, I wouldn't be able to cope with such a situation. No way. And I was no contact for quite a while. And I do believe breaking no contact is usually a mistake. The key words are usually. But as this community has grown, I've seen a few people talk about doing what they felt was the right thing when the narcissist parent passed away, or was at the end of their life. Sure, they broke no contact, but they made sure it was very, very, very limited. And they were at a point where they were strong enough to not let the narcissist really back in their life. And not everyone can do that. And the other part of my reply back refers to my mother getting on disability, and this is one thing that really gets me. And I'm sorry to say, even though men and women share narcissism in the same rates, our society lets women use their children as ways to gain another income. And that's what has become of our society. No matter if it's a gold digger trying to get pregnant by a rich man, or a poor woman getting pregnant so they can get welfare and eventually disability. Because before my mother was in the poor health she is in now. Somehow once there was no more assistance coming in because of myself and my golden child brother were no longer minors. She was weirdly able to convince someone to give her disability. That's when she told me I either had to be on the system like her or leave the home. My brother and my mother, like many I've seen out there, are together on the system. But before all that, when I was just a kid, my father died due to what I believe my mother put him through. And she wasn't educated enough to deal with his assets and lost everything fairly quickly. Which led us to being on every free money dole type program you can think of. Now, I ask you, what would have happened if my mother had no children? Do you think she would have qualified for all that free money? No. She wouldn't have qualified at all. And I believe that's what a lot of the women that take advantage of such programs know. And the reason why many of them have children to begin with. There was a time I lived in a neighborhood where that's all there was. Single women abusing the system. And having more children for another check. And no one says this is child abuse. No one can call out the women from the gold digger to the one wanting welfare as abusing their children. Because if family court was fair, and free money programs were limited to those that need it, not to incentivize it for those to abuse and take advantage of it. But that's what our society wants. No matter if you are rich or poor. They want you to be a broken human being. So you aren't able to reach the full potential God has set out for you to achieve. Because even though people can be incredibly bad, they can be incredibly good and talented as well. And there are a lot of talented people that never got a chance to help make society a better place with their talents. Because their talents were snuffed out because they were raised in a completely dysfunctional, crazy home. that led this person to self-destruct. And my hope is that someone will see this information, no matter it be my channel or someone else's, where they can connect the dots and see what is really happening, and stop being a battery for the matrix, and instead be an asset to themselves and mankind, by doing good and producing wonderful things. With that said, that's all I have for now. I do hope you had a blessed day. I do thank you for your support and comments, because iron truly sharpens iron. So let's keep on praying for wisdom. Let's keep on praying for strength. And let's keep on praying for courage. And until next time, bye for now. And be good to yourself.